Welcome to the Build On Beautypodcast, where beauty is born skin deep. Now, here's your host, author, speaker, entrepreneur, Cornell Jermaine.
Thank you all so much for joining me. I have a very special guest with me. He is a 21st century leader, a preacher, pastor, a father, husband, and son of a man who I've admired and respected deeply for so many years. Please help me welcome Pastor Jonathan Andrew Merritt. Pastor Merritt,
good to see you, Cornell.
Good to see you. Man, we got so much to talk about. We are in the sanctuary. First of all, we're in this beautiful edifice, and this sanctuary it means a lot to me, and I can only imagine what it means to you being the son of the bishop here. I remember in the late 80s, early 90s coming here, and a young lady by the name of Dana Powell.
Wow. You went back.
Yes, she was my inspiration when I started my praise and worship ministry. Wow. I'm like, I just loved how she ministered and flowed with the word and the music. So I just come in the sanctuary for a minute when we were waiting to get started here. I just sat here like, wow, and not even that, just the men and women of God who stood on this pulpit and preached and ministered. It's amazing. I'm just curious, being the son of this house, what does it mean to you coming and just seeing what the impact?
There's rich history. Last year we celebrated 40 years of ministry.
Yeah.
My dad founded this ministry, Straight Gate, 40 years ago with my mom and my oldest sister.
Yeah.
So the three of them opened the storefront, didn't have any money, didn't have any marketing dollars, and it was just them. They opened the doors because my dad believed that God had called him to start it.
Wow.
And through the years, God has just been faithful. That's really what it all comes down to, is that God, whatever God touches and he, gives direction on and gives you the vision for, he'll make sure he sees it to come to pass as long as you follow along with that vision. So men and women have graced this stage, graced this platform, the members, the people of God, the men and women of God who sang, who preached, who taught. It's just, it's a blessing. So when you come in here, I look around and I'm like, man, this is just a beauty of God's wisdom.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You mentioned your dad, the founding pastor, along with your mom, Bishop Andrew Merritt. I did not know until recently. First of all, you look just like him. Your pastor, you got his middle name.
Yeah.
Well, you have his first name as your middle name, but you share his birthday.
Yeah.
And he prophesied your birth.
He prophesied my birth, and back then in '82, don't want to tell my age, but y'all can do the math. But back in '82, you couldn't tell whether or not a woman was going to have a boy or a girl. Mm-hmm. So my dad had previously had 3 girls. So many people were like, you're about to have another girl. Look at the way that the belly shaped. And they came up with all these reasons why it was going to be another girl. But he believed God, that God had promised him a son. And so he went out there boldly on faith and said, you can have what you say. So he prophesied that not only was he going to have a boy, but I was going to be born on his birthday. So my due date was like in December. So it was like 8 days off from his birthday. So it wasn't like it was, I was supposed to be due on that day. But I happened to be born on a Sunday morning, which was wild because I was born at like 7:30, and then he left her at the hospital to go preach.
Wow.
And to declare. I think he probably had a little bit of pride.
Yeah.
He had some pride running in.
He couldn't wait to tell everybody.
Look, I told you. But the title of that message was "You Can Have What You Say."
Wow.
So it's kind of cool because a couple years ago I preached "What You Can You Can Have What You Say" Part 2. Mm-hmm. So because I was believing God for a boy as well, and I had 2 girls, and so people were like, "Oh, you're gonna have another girl." Mm-hmm. So it's like, people in your own church, like, why are you going against me?
Where's your faith in God?
Any faith in the house?
Right.
So it was tremendous, just tremendous lineage to be a part of this family.
Absolutely. 40 years in ministry. Your dad and this church has been a pinnacle in the city for many years. You now being a pastor, along with your brother.
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
It's amazing to work with your family. A lot of people say that it's terrible, it's hard working with your family. I work with my sisters, I work with my brother, I work with my wife, works here at the church. So we all here as a family work together, and it's a blessing. My dad always says is he believes that when God calls a man, he calls his family. Not that necessarily everybody has to work in that field, but being a part of that vision and sharing a part and making them along and taking them along for the experience. It's been such a blessing, especially my brother, because when we were younger, we were not the closest brothers. We were not the ones that you sit there and say, oh, I want a relationship like them two. No. That wasn't the case. But as time went on, when he had got to Michigan, he's 3 years younger than me. When he had got to Michigan and we were both on campus, he decided not to stay with me and decided to stay with one of my friends on a futon when I had a whole nother bedroom open.
He's going to prove to you,
Yeah,
I got this.
to me, like, I got this, but it proved to me that I needed to do some work on our relationship. So I took it upon myself to go to his dorm room, not his dorm room, but his apartment every single day. And we watched sports together, which kind of like the thing that we had in common of our interests. So that just started our relationship, and now
the bond is there.
The bond is stronger than ever. I'm his biggest supporter, and he's my biggest supporter.
Wow, that's amazing. I have many, many friends who are PKs of prominent ministers. I'm just curious because I know it can be tough sometimes, especially growing up in ministry, being the kid of the preacher or the bishop. You can carry sometimes the weight of the burden.
Yeah.
Had that been your experience
at all? It's one of the reasons why I didn't want to do this. Matter of fact, if I can get out of it right now, the second during this podcast, let me go do something different. It's a lot, it's a lot taking on, people's lives and being held accountable to God. It's not just accountable to man, you're accountable to God when you're a pastor. And so just seeing that as I grew up, just the demand on my dad of people's family being in the hospital, marriage problems, family issues, people losing people in their family, bereavement issues. So just all of it, I didn't want any part of it. For me, it was just like, this is what my dad does, not what I have to do. But yet you had people all along saying that, no, you're going to be a pastor. You're going, it's what every PK gets, right? You're going to be a pastor. And like, no, I'm going to do my own thing. And I tried to do my own thing. My brother tried to do his own thing. And that's one thing I love about God is that sometimes in life, your gifting is not necessarily what he has for you. And it's kind of hard to like realize that, like, because I was a basketball player. That's what I was good at. That's what I wanted to be. My brother, the exact same way. So we both played in college, and unfortunately, I had some injuries in my shoulder that kind of like put a halt to those things. But you realize I had a gifting my whole life, and to see it go away and realize that my future was not dependent upon my gift.
Wow. Speaking of your gifting, and we want to definitely tap into your book, Step Out. And this book begins with a trip, and I think you alluded to it a little bit, that you had with your wife in Costa Rica.
Okay.
Start us there and tell us what happened.
Yeah, it was a crazy situation. We're on a vacation. We have 4 kids. At that time, we only had 3. And just to get away, spend some time, one of the things that I realized being a part of my family is that I always felt like my dad never got away enough. And still to this day, he doesn't get away enough. I mean, he absolutely loves what he's done. I mean, my dad can run circles around all of us.
Wow.
I mean, that's how much he loves pastoring. He loves working for the ministry. He loves doing the things of God. But at some point, you got to realize, hey, you need some time away to recharge. And so we took out some time to recharge and went out there for a week, or were planning to, having just enjoy each other. And we get to Costa Rica. First night's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And the second night, we're coming back from the beach to the hotel, and we were in a golf cart. I wasn't driving. I want to make sure everybody, I was not driving. But they were driving, and all of a sudden, he stops the golf cart. Sprinkler system is like going around us, so he didn't want it to hit us, so he kind of like backed up a little bit. And once the sprinkler system started to go in the opposite direction, he presses the gas a little bit too hard. Me and my wife were on the back side of the golf cart, ended up falling backwards on this hill, and it was just crazy. And I didn't really know what was going on at the time. My wife was like far from me. She wasn't like right next to me. We fell out. She went her way, I went my way, and it was pitch black. And a SUV, I could remember seeing the lights as it was approaching, but since it was pitch black, like they couldn't necessarily see us. And my wife like screams, "No!" That's all I can remember. And the SUV swerved. And so it was just a crazy experience. I could barely walk. My elbow was busted all the way open. I couldn't move my arm really. It was just a crazy experience that we had. Was in the hospital and, you know, for the rest of my time there, with the doctor seeing me in the room and, you know, shooting me up with different things, taking opiate pills to deal with the pain. And so it was probably one of the most craziest experiences in my life. But one of the things about it is that's why I believe that God knows these things are going to happen, right? He's seen them happen already, but yet he knows that way of escape. And we just got to find that way out. Yeah. So that's what, you know, set up the book.
It starts there, and I want to dig a little deeper into that. You talk about that experience. I'm wondering, that experience, did it, in your mind, bring a halt to all of your vision goals? Because prior to that, you still wanted to do the basketball thing.
No. So I tore my rotator cuff in my shoulder a couple of times in college.
Okay.
This accident, so I've been out of college for quite some time. This accident happened in January of 2018.
Okay.
So, you know, married, 3 kids. I get back to Detroit and really can't function as a husband, pastor. You know, I own a coffee shop, couldn't do anything with that. I was basically in the bed and then going to my doctor appointments. That was pretty much a 7-week period of my life.
Wow.
So it did put a halt to all those different things because I couldn't really function.
Wow. Yeah. Your dad opens up in his forward, and I think he had a great perspective of his position of this experience. Somehow he found out that you were dead. This is crazy. It's one of the most craziest things ever. Okay.
I was on a trip 2 months before the Costa Rica trip.
Okay, hold on. So something else happened?
Something else? No, nothing happened on the trip.
Okay.
But somebody with my name passed away in the Caribbean. So I was on a way on a trip, and somebody called my dad, like, I'm sorry. And he's like, what are you sorry for? It's like, oh, you heard, right? And he's like, what? And he was like, oh, Bishop, you haven't heard? He's like, no. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, Bishop. I don't know if I'm out of line by saying this, but Jonathan's gone.
Wow.
Because somebody with my name actually did pass in the Caribbean, so they thought that it was me because I was actually on a trip.
Hold on. So that was a couple of months prior to this accident. So spiritually, do you feel like there was some kind of attack that the enemy made?
Oh man, 100%. 100%. The enemy does not want anything to go forward. And if he feels like something is going to go forward and he could put a halt to it, he'll do every single thing possible. I mean, he came to Jesus. Jesus gives him the word. And it says, the Bible says that he said that he would come back at another opportune time. So he will continuously come back to try to poke holes, to halt, to stop what God is doing. Because he knows when God's hand is on somebody's life. And so I just looked at it as, you know, my dad kept on calling my cell phone, but I was actually in the spa. So he was determined, and he writes this in the foreword, he was determined to hear my voice. Like, no, my son is not dead. Why? Because of the promises of God, they can't die. So he just kept staying on that, called my phone so many times, and he called David, and finally I get out of the spot. I'm like, why is my phone being lit up? And then I end up calling my dad, and my dad tells me what had taken place. But I mean, he was so full of emotion on that phone call that, you know, after somebody had said that, just to hear my voice again. So this happens 2 months later after that situation. So we knew for a fact that this is the enemy just, you know, trying to do what he does.
I want to read something Bishop Merritt wrote in his foreword and get your perspective as a believer. He said, my son has become the subject of many of my messages over the years, including you can have what you say and faith extenders. He is the promise of God fulfilled to me. So I kept calling his phone. You must be thinking, why call a child that you were told was dead? And he makes this profound statement, because promises don't die. As a believer, What does that statement alone mean to you?
That statement alone to me means that he knew for a fact that the plan of God for my life, that wasn't it. Mm-hmm. And if just like Isaac with Abraham, it says that Abraham knew that God was able, even him going through with killing of Isaac, was able to resurrect him. And that same promise that he knew that God had given him about my life. A couple of days later after I was born, Kenneth Copeland dedicates me at Copa Hall in front of like 13,000 people. 5 days old.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom didn't even want me to leave the hospital at that time, let alone be amongst 13,000 people at 5 days old. That's I'm barely here 100 hours, 100 something hours here on this earth. So she finally submits and allows that to happen. But one of the prayers in that Kenneth Copeland prayed over me is that I would be a pastor to the millennials, and that's back in '82. So the word millennial wasn't even really touted then. So if that vision of every single thing in my life prophetically was to be fulfilled, then that promise couldn't die.
Wow. That is amazing. There are a few other points. As you can see, my book is lit up.
Thanks so much for reading it.
Absolutely. A few other things I want to touch bases on just to get your perspective as the author. You talk about the man on the pool side. Mm-hmm. And you say the man on the pool, by the pool, could have been healed a long time ago. Then his words hit me. You said he was stuck in his mind, which is why he stayed trapped in his body. Your book, Step Out, is talking about stepping out on faith and the promises of God. But there's so many in this generation, even generations prior, who are stuck in their mind. Yeah. How do they overcome?
I talk about it in my book. It's a process, right? Like, so even if you look at the man at the gate, at the pool, at the woman with the issue of blood, there was a moment that took place that they understood in order to receive from God, they had to act on faith. Mm-hmm. There was a stepping out that needed to be done in order to receive. Mm-hmm. Now, here he is waiting for somebody to put him in the pool after 30-something. Like, why not just scoot a little bit closer so you can just fall right in? But he thought to himself that he needed the assistance in order to make that work. And that's what a lot of us look for, is assistance in other places. But when we have Christ on the inside of us, Christ is not, we shouldn't be waiting on him. Mm-hmm. He's waiting on us to step out. And so a lot of us get stuck put these things in our mind. Well, I can't be healed until I get to the doctor. I can't be healed, or I can't receive anything until I get a promotion. Mm-hmm. We're always looking and kind of minimizing and limiting God for what he's able to do. Mm-hmm. When he says, if you believe, you shall see the glory of God. Mm-hmm. The problem is the believing part. Yeah. Most of us don't believe. We can say something and not believe it. And the problem is with that is that if I am saying things that I don't believe, or I'm asking things or praying things, Mark 11, 23, 24, I can't receive from it. Mm-hmm. I got to believe. To believe something means to take action. Mm-hmm. And if I believe something, I shall see the fruit of something. The fruit, being fruitful, if we look at, talking about dominion, if we talk about the Bible for a second, to be fruitful means to exhibit to the public. Mm-hmm. That means that there is exhibiting. That means that there is something that is indicating that something has been fulfilled already. Well, if I believe something in faith, faith is the substance of what? Things hoped for. The evidence, there is no evidence. Wow. So I'm acting out on something that cannot be seen in this world yet. Mm-hmm. But it is seen to God before he called me before the foundations of the world. Thy will be done on earth as it is where? In heaven. If that's the case, and I'm supposed to receive things from heaven, he says the things that are on this earth are temporary. The things in heaven are eternal. Mm-hmm. So I have to continuously speak out and understand that when I speak, and if I keep on speaking, that's what the woman with the issue of blood, she's able to receive from God her healing, because I guarantee you, as she got closer and closer, if I can just get there.
Yeah. Now, you talk about believing even when you don't see what faith is. I'm curious, in this generation, social media, everything is visual, everything is image.
Right.
How can we embrace the unseen when everything is evident?
Because we
before
got to do
us?
we got to do the same thing Abraham did. Abraham talks to God. He's not talking to anybody else. That's why God wanted him away from the family, away from what he knew to be true. He had to take him out of that environment and get him in a place where only he could deal with them. That's why it's important for us, even in this generation, spend time with God.
Yeah.
Get into that secret place. Get into that prayer closet, even if it's in your car, even if it's a little in your cubicle at your job during your break. Spend time with God, because as you spend time with God, then he's able to show Abraham his vision and says, Abraham, look at the stars. Look at the sand. They're innumerable, right? So that's how your seed is going to be. He's able to now give him a vision now once he has become in a place where it's only him and God.
Wow.
And us as young people, we in this generation, we have to take that same experience and say, you know what? Instead of me spending all this time on social media, because I'm seeing all these different images and majority of them ain't glorifying God, let me get into my Bible. And that's one of the things that I try to tell people is that, also for this generation, the Bible app, a wonderful app. I use it all the time. I use it for studying. I use it for when I preach. But there's something about getting that written word of God out that the only notification that you can get is from the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
It I'm getting notifications from Twitter, IG, Snap, and all these other places, my messages or my phone calls that interrupt that time. If I put those things away during that time with God, I can hear clearly so that the vision that I'm getting is from him, and then I know that he's got to make that thing come to pass.
Wow, that's amazing. Let's talk vision for a minute, because not only are you a man of God preacher, but you're also a business owner. How does that translate for you?
It's great. I own a coffee shop, me and my brother, and we never drink coffee.
So no Starbucks?
No, that just goes to show you that God can do anything. One of the things about it is our bookstore here at Straightgate, book sales had been declining for years. Seeing the insurgence of technology and iPads, iPhones, Kindles, ebook readers. And so what happened was we were saying, what do we do with this space? How can we revamp this space and still build community? So we said a coffee shop should do that. It'll be able to give people a chance to sit down, drink coffee, spend time together with one another, and create an incredible experience. But we didn't know anything about coffee. But my brother David has some contacts with Zingerman's in Ann Arbor, and we met with them and sat down with them, and they taught us basically the coffee business from A to Z. Wow. And so we opened one here in April of 2016. After the first day, we knew we had something special.
Yeah.
Because people were just loving every single thing, from the drinks to the baked goods to the smoothies, coffee, the whole 9 yards. And so we knew that we had something.
So have you tried a little bit yet?
Oh, I drink our stuff.
You drink it? Okay. You got to proof it first.
Yeah. We drink our own stuff. So that was that one. And then probably a couple months later, my brother was at Cuzzo's off of Livernois and, eating some good chicken and waffles. And then all of a sudden, he walked by the building next door and saw that it was available for lease. And so, we asked God, this is what you want us to do. Set forward, and we've been open now for a little bit over 2 years.
Wow. I want to dig into your entrepreneurial ventures for a second, because entrepreneurship now is something that everybody's aspiring to be. They don't really know. It takes a whole lot more than they realize. But give us some nuggets, some things that you hold on to as it pertains to the daily grind.
The daily grind of
daily,
being an entrepreneur.
Monday through Sunday. And he a preacher.
Yeah. So I would say this is your team. I actually watch a show pretty religiously. It's called The Prophet.
Yes.
With Marcus Lemonis. And people, process, and products. And so we kind of followed the same sentiment of saying that your people are everything. And we wanted to create a customer service that was unmatched on that street, and really unmatched across coffee shops that we had ever been to. So we wanted to make sure that you were greeted when your people came in, and you were greeted when you were left, and that your needs were met while you were there. That same kind of thought process that we have here at Straightgate, that all the people's needs will be met, any way that we can help make that happen. So we kind of gave that our brand that kind of, vibe. And so investing in your people, you'll never go wrong. Because if you invest in your employees, your customers are going to feel that. They're going to see that. Because if you don't, they're going to see the opposite. People who don't care about, whether or not you get the greatest customer service experience or not. So investing in your people is always most important. The product has to be obviously incredible. I think the product makes the difference. So yes, you can have the best people, but if you don't have a product that can separate or you can market it as something that is different than your competitors, then I think you're not going to have a really good chance of being successful. So then obviously the process. The more efficient you can make something, the better it is that your business is going to be. So we try to, every single week, we meet at 9 o'clock and try to go over what is happening and go over how we can correct different things and put a process in place and keep on changing up the process and keep on changing and changing it until it becomes, it probably won't ever stop changing. Right? That's the whole thing about it, is that because you want to always continuously get better and better.
That's right. What do you do in those moments when you have the vision, everybody's rolled out and the team is rah, and it doesn't go as planned and now it's this and that?
We're dealing with that. We're dealing with that right now on our block on Livernois. There's been construction going since May 1st.
And it won't end until next year, probably.
Well, we
rebuke that in Jesus' name.
We don't want that to happen. But one of the things that I'll say is that we've been dealing with this issue of construction on the block. So it made us really adjust our thinking of how to bring revenue dollars in during this time where it's a hard time for people not being able to park on the street or being able to open our front door. And so we've had to adjust our thinking about the process that we were going underneath and saying what other avenues or other ways can we create growth strategies in order to still bring in dollars for the business. So we're hit with that construction every single day over the last 5 months. And we'll see how long it continues, but prayerfully,
bringing a halt to it in Jesus' name.
That thing is done.
Hear it no further. Look, we're going old school. Wow. Team building. I want to tap into that really quick. For an individual that's looking to step out in a vision, they know they can't do it alone. What would you say their first steps should be to build that team?
So I think it's, even if you can't hire somebody, find a mentor, find somebody in the same field. Even if it's cold calling and cold emailing, you never know what could happen. My brother actually is he's like the best cold emailer off of LinkedIn that there ever was. But that's what I'm saying. In order for there to be a reaction in heaven, there's got to be an action here on earth. So you got to step out and do something. Find somebody that is in the same field that you can learn from, that you can grow from, because you don't know what kind of context or connections that they can give you to help you go forward on that vision. Another thing that you can do, obviously, is sometimes even when a lot of entrepreneurs, or you're starting by yourself, it's just you. So that means that you are the CEO, you're the general manager, you're the CFO, you're all these different things. Looking at the SBDC or the SBA and trying to find different resources within your city, within your county, and try to find out what free resources that you can get or be a part of. Another thing is networking. Try Facebook groups and see what along your path or your vision that you could be a part of, to be a part of a community that people are in a like mind, same street, same environment. So
good. Back to your book, you talk about stepping out. I'm curious, how does an individual know when they should not be stepping out on a particular thing?
Whether or not God tells you. If any step that you are taking that He didn't tell you to take is a wrong step. It's a misstep. Sometimes not moving is still stepping out. And people got to remember that.
That's good.
Because a lot of people think, okay, John, you're telling me to step out. Okay, let me step out on something that I've been wanting to do. I've been believing that this is the call for my life. I've been thinking about this. Where, sometimes throughout this time that we've been sitting together, I've been feeling cold. At some moments, I've been feeling kind of warm. So that stepping out can change, on the whim. But if I'm not hearing the voice of God in something, it's not going to prosper me anyway. So sometimes waiting on God is still stepping out.
Yeah.
I mean, he answers us a couple of different ways. He gives us clear yes. He gives us a clear no. And then sometimes he doesn't say anything at all. And when he doesn't say anything at all, that's still warning that maybe it's not for you right now, but that still isn't a yes. So that's still, for that time period, is no, until he gives you the direction to say yes. Jesus was so efficient on the earth because he only said what God said and only did what God did. That's the reason why he was able to receive every single thing and knock off every single part of that vision that God, the Father, and the Holy Spirit has set up for them to orchestrate here on earth.
Wow. Yeah. That is amazing. I want to touch on that just a little bit more because there are so many people who hear this, listen to God if he tells you yes, if he tells you no. But then you have that whole group that they don't like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
How do they train their ear or their spirit?
Train your ear is get into church. I have this thing with our age group that love Bedside Baptist. And they might say that they're not a part of Bedside Baptist. They might say they are a part of a local assembly, but you got to get out of your bed. And there's something important about being around like believers that, you can grow from, being a part of a church that you can be a part of, and learning the voice of God through whoever your pastor is and whoever the leaders are at that church to help lead you and guide you. I'm a huge proponent on we can't be YouTube gospel.
Yes.
Because what happens is as great as sermons and things that are on there, and we use it. I love it as a medium, as a tool. But if I'm not a part of a local body, it's hard for me. And God and Jesus knew that. Like, if you're not a part of a gathering, when you need support of community, you'll always miss that.
Yeah.
Being part of YouTube Gospel. Why? Because you're part of a church that doesn't meet, doesn't talk to one another.
They don't even know your name.
They don't even know your name.
Yeah.
So how can people be praying for you and standing in the gap for you and being an example to you? And so I would say being a part of a local assembly, and it's not so much about, I'm trying to get them into a church. The Bible tells us the importance of why to be inside of a church. But I'll talk about just spending time with God. And the more that you read his word, just ask him. One of the great things about my father is that he got saved and filled with the Spirit just by being at his house. Wow. He was a person of just one person, just spending time with God, and God just blessed him. And then being in that same room gave him the vision for Straight Gate. I mean, it's just amazing that if you spend time with him, and I say this, it would be like ignorant of me to ask you a question right now, and even if you didn't answer me, but just walk right off the stage as I asked it. And sometimes when we're praying to God, okay, Lord, this is what I want. This is what I need, Lord. We could be even full of tears and whatnot. And then the next moment, okay, let me go check my phone. Yeah. So it's important that, give God time to answer you. Just don't give him the 3 minutes or the 2 minutes, out of your day and say, oh, well, God hasn't answered me yet. The woman with the issue of blood for 12 long years, she went to all these different other sources, but really the only source that she needed was Christ. So I was trying to I started to be comfortable even in being uncomfortable. So I was going through all these different ailments from having opiate pills, and then I started to just pop them.
Yeah.
Then I started to just be like, you know what? Maybe this is just what I'm supposed to do. Maybe I'm not supposed to be this person that can lay hands on the sick and they should recover. And I started to belittle who I was, and my father asking me to preach was basically like, dude, you can be healed any moment that you want to. You just need to just get your butt up. And that's the whole thing about taking action, about stepping out. So, he would ask me every single week, hey, you preaching on Sunday? You preaching on Sunday? I'm like, dude, If you ask me one more time to preach, I'm not getting up out of this bed. Even me and my wife was going at it a couple of times during this period because, you know, I'm like just a nasty person, man, during this time period. I'm like mad at God. Like, why am I laying on this bed when I have so much responsibility to do? But God probably the whole time was like, why are you laying on this bed when you have such a big responsibility to do?
Take up your bed.
Take up your bed and walk.
Wow.
So as soon as I finally started to get it, like, would you stop annoying me, asking me to come preach? I can't even get out of bed, dude. And finally, one Saturday, I was like, fine, I'll go preach at our other location. And then I'll come right back home and go to bed because you asking me way too many times. So I get there that Sunday. This is after like 7 weeks after the accident. I get there. I was gonna sit down in the pew. I sit down in a chair just like me and you, and just open up my Bible and just say what I knew. And in my thought process, now looking at it, that would be robbing the people of anything that they needed from God. And that's why us as people, we can't just wake up not talking to God, because God gives fresh bread every single morning. He can give you fresh wisdom anytime that you need it. All he says is just asking me. So in this moment, man, I get there, but my brother who leads praise and worship for the ministries, he started to lead praise and worship, and as the song was "You Are My Daily Bread," and God gave me exactly what I needed in that moment.
Wow.
A person who couldn't really lift their hands over 7 weeks, and then like total surrender in that moment. It was crazy because I had went through so many different emotions. God, you don't really care about me. How could this happen to me? And this is just an accident, but this is a freak accident where I'm like on my vacation and then I can't move, but then I can't do anything. And then I, was basically drugged up and medicated for these 7 weeks. It's just
started to like the drug and the medication.
Started to like the drug and medication because it just
keeps me
just at ease. And started to look at the people like, I gotta, what I was about to say, what I knew, I couldn't do it anymore.
Wow.
Then I started to that was the longest that I had got out of the chair, stood up, preached for like 40 minutes. That was the longest that I had stood since the accident. So my body was just tired and drained. I mean, it was a move of God in that message, in that house. It was just, that's what happens when you surrender, right?
Yeah.
God can do anything he wants to do. And that moment taught me that, hey, you can get anything you want out of me. That's what God is saying to me. Like, you can get anything you want out of me. But sulking, and that ain't gonna do it.
Yeah.
You gotta put some faith towards whatever it is that you're moving forward to. So at that moment I was like, all right, I did my work today. I'm about to go home. I'm tired. I'm drained as long as I've been stood. And one of the deacons was driving me, and it's like, and that as I get in the car, I'm like, you know what? Just take me to main campus. I can go in my office and sleep. Then my wife can drive me back home.
You was being set up, didn't even know it.
Being set up, didn't even know it. I get to main campus. Service hadn't started yet, so I was like, let me just sit in this back pew real quickly. I don't really have the energy to go upstairs. Being set up the whole way, right? All these, I'm back there. I start to pray, and I hear this voice. I'm not done with you yet, son. I'm like, what in the world?
Right.
I'm not done with you yet. I said, I said to somebody back there, I said, somebody, there was like nobody around. I'm like, so I was like, I'm tripping right now. I probably need some more medication. Start praying again. I'm not done with you yet. And I responded, I said, what you mean you're not done with me? I need you to preach. I said, God kind of slow today. I've already preached today. God has used me. This thing is done. Then I saw service had started, hit my dad's notes. My dad was preaching that Sunday, so his notes had hit the hit the soundboard for the media team to put on the screens. And I'm like, okay, we good. Mm-hmm. He preaching. Mm-hmm. But usually my dad is down pretty early during praise and worship. We want to be a part of the praise and worship experience. And he wasn't coming down. So I'm dealing with this thought in my head the whole time that, God, you saying you're not done with me. And then I said to myself, oh, he probably wants me to tell, God, you want me to tell what happened this morning.
Give you a testimony.
Give you a testimony, right? You want me to just give a testimony. Nah, Doc.
Wow.
I want you to preach. So probably like my dad 10 minutes later comes down and he's like, I'm going to do the offering today. And I'm thinking to myself, why is he telling me that? Because, oh yeah, John, you usually do the offering.
So you getting a break, you think?
I'm getting a break. Mm-hmm. But what comes out of my mouth next, I don't even know how it came out. I said, that's okay because I'm going to preach today.
Wow.
Now my dad is already mic'd up, like us. Already got his lav on, through his shirt, through the bag tie, we put ours through the tie, all nice and stuff. And that comes out of my mouth.
Wow.
My dad immediately does not say, he says, you sure? I said, yes. He takes off his mic right there in the back, takes it off. Go get him.
Wow.
Now that says something to me, right? That says something to me that God probably was not just speaking to me. Mm-hmm. That's trusting the Holy Spirit in that moment, because why would you give somebody the mic that...
Right, you didn't know they was prepared or not.
You don't know if they're prepared or not.
Mm-hmm.
Preached an hour.
So you put work in.
Prayed for 120 people that day.
Wow. Wow.
Miracles, signs, and wonders. The name of the message, Step Out.
Wow. Which birthed the book that we now
birthed the book. I was limping as I got up here because I still hadn't received, in my mind, my healing. The manifestation of it wasn't there. Mm-hmm. So I'm still like barely limping up here. As the service was going on, my body was healed as the service. So by the time I got to start praying for people, I was basically running from one side to the next.
You forgot all about an injury. Wow.
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes we isolate what God can do with us because of our experience, of what our past has taught us, what others have taught us, and what we're experiencing in that moment.
It's so funny because if you had not, I'm just thinking, if you had not accepted that call in that moment,
I wouldn't be able to see God's hand in my life.
And you wouldn't have been elevated to this next level because that's when your first book. So
I preached the message. As I'm walking out of here that day, I get up to my office and God's like, it's time to write it. Other people need to be encouraged that what they're going through is not the destination that I have for them. It's part of the journey. But just like if you get on the road, and you start driving to Ohio, drive from here to Kentucky, there's some rest stops along the way. That means that that Sunday morning was a refilling for me. And other people are on their journey. They've got a couple more miles to their destination. But before they get there, they're going to feel restless. They're going to feel tired. They're going to feel like they're not going to make it to that rest stop. They're not going to make it to that next point that I've called them to go. They're not going to make it. They feel like they're not going to make that dream happen that I've given them, that vision, that business that I've laid out for them. They're not going to, they have this feeling, but yet I have called them to step out on faith so that we can see this thing through. And so I was obedient.
Yeah.
Rode in like 2 weeks. So now, through an accident, I wrote my first book.
Right. Now you're not just preacher, entrepreneur, you're author.
Now I'm an author because of the whole experience.
Wow.
And now really I'm editing my playbook for Step Out. Wow. So this will be my second.
Wow.
So hopefully in the next couple of months that'll be out. So He's tremendous, man.
Amen. I mean, no doubt. We're gonna begin to wrap, but I want to take a moment, because you and your brother are serving as pastors now here alongside your father. And I'm just curious, being the millennials in the house, what new perspectives, what do you feel like the body of Christ needs in order to win this generation out?
No different.
No different.
Same message. It could be retooled a different way, the same message.
Okay.
He died, he was buried, he rose again. It's been winning people ever since the beginning of time. I mean, since the resurrection. I think what happens though is that we think that it's so many different other things to win people. Now, to disciple people is a whole different ballgame, but to win souls, it's just spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ and allowing that love to be shown. He tells, I think one of the things that is hurting us is we have a problem loving people. And it's the first command. You know, he says that if you really want to know how all the other commandments are told, love others as you would love yourself. And I think we have compartmentalized Christians, denominations, and where we feel like we're all after something totally different, when all is man-made anyway. But if we just follow the message of Christ and sharing the gospel, when I share the gospel of Jesus Christ with somebody on the street, they receive. So what's the difference? The difference is we're talking about every single thing but.
We caught up in the hype.
Caught up in the hype of this and that. But when people are hurting, and young people are really needing direction, we could talk about, you know, why, you know, from family issues of them not being a father in the house, of, you know, there not being a whole family of kids growing up having to deal with various different issues, whether it's an educational system and all these different things. But the one thing that this nation needs is just God. And I think that that's the one missing part of it. People are like, well, there's so many churches, but there's a lot of us we get off the path of evangelizing, saying that, hey, people need Jesus. Some of the reasons why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. Because I know when I truly accepted him in my life started to change. And that's my testimony. But every single time in my life that I've got off the beaten path, it wasn't because, you know, God wasn't doing something for me. It's because my flesh, I gave into that part. And so Jesus is amazing, man. And I think that the more that we realize of sharing the true nature of who Jesus is, not church itself, not a building itself, but relationship with Jesus. Not a religion, but relationship, and what that relationship has done for us. When we share that in a true, authentic form, I know that he has transformed my life like never before. My friends that grew up with me, they call me John 2.0 right now. Because the 1.0 version, they knew that 1.0 was a mess. This 2.0 is revamped, and it ain't because of me. It's because I submitted to God's plan for my life.
Wow. Looking at this sanctuary, this building, this ministry that you and your dad and mom built, they're 40 years in now. Thinking about your own ministry and what God is doing for you, what do you want for yourself 40 years from now?
Me and my brother say this, not to change the vision, but just to continue to run with it. I think that what he says unto one, he says unto all. We're part of that lineage. What he said unto my dad of reaching the city, nation, and the world for Jesus Christ, we're just going to follow through with that and continue to spread God all across the world in any mediums possible. So that's the plan that we have, is any way that we can see that we can fit any of those needs being met. So from the city aspect of making sure that we do all that we can, giving the city resources to people that are in the city. Lately, we've done expungent fairs here, health things here, anything dealing with body, mind, soul, spirit, we're going to be a part of.
Wow, amazing. Well, my brother, I appreciate
Thanks, Cornell, for coming
Thank you for joining
Appreciate
me.
Appreciate it, man.
You have my support. Tell us how we can get the book.
Oh, you can get the book a lot of different ways, but come check me out at JonathanAMerritt.com. JonathanAMerritt.com. And the reason why I'm putting the A in between there, obviously that's my father's name is Andrew, stands for that, but also because there's another Jonathan Merritt who is the author of that.
Yes.
We want to make sure that you get to the right place. So JonathanAMerritt.com. They can pick up the book there. I also did a audible version, so they can pick that on iTunes or Amazon as well.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, you have it here. This has been the Build On Beauty podcast, where beauty is born skin deep. I'm your host, Cornell Jermaine. Until next time, let your soul be made whole. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Build On Beauty podcast. For more information about our host, please visit cornelljermaine.com.